Let us start the next session. Today we are talking about corporate power purchase agreements. It's in simple terms. It could redefine Bangladesh and Bangladeshi industries. And globally, it has been a game changer. And it has helped many brands like H&M, IKEA, and Google to achieve its renewable energy targets. And with arrangements like carbon border adjustment mechanisms in the horizon and knocking on Bangladesh export doors, and policies like CPPAs being active, I think it's a prominent and important topic that we should discuss. And to that extent, we have organized this session to have that discussion. CPPAs are not an energy topic. They are economic and competitiveness tool for our industries. And exactly what we will explore today from policy, private sector investment, and regulatory angles. My short introduction, I'm Ahsan. I work as advisor of economic cooperation and private sector development at GIZ, and I represent the GetPAP project, which is Green Energy Transition for Policy Advisory Partnership. Thank you again for coming here, and I would like to introduce our panelists first, and I'll call upon them to grab a seat on the podium. First of all, we are going to be joined with Edwin Cook, who's representing the EU delegation, bringing the Europe's experience in renewable energy markets and supply chain decarbonization. So Edwin, if you could take a seat in the middle. Next, we have Mr. Sayan Shafi from H&M, one of the key global brands driving clean energy sourcing and RMG decarbonization. Shayan bhai, if you would come to the stage. A round of applause, please, everyone, for Shayan bhai. We also have a project developer, an international project developer with us, Mr. Imran Chaudhary from Ivy Watt, who have been developing utility-scale solar projects throughout Asia. Thank you, Imran bhai, for coming to the event. From the financial sector, we have Ms. Basif Siddiq from Citibank, and Citibank has been a key financier in green loan commitments. Thank you, Ms. bhai. Lastly, we have representation from Bangladesh government, Premier Utility, Bangladesh Power Development Board, Mohammad Faisal Hassan. So let's give them a warm round of applause again. So in this session, we'll be spending 45 minutes unpacking CPPAs and what they mean for Bangladesh, the opportunity and the hurdles and the immediate next steps forward. We will start with a quick question to every one of you. So in one sentence, what comes to your mind when you hear corporate power purchase agreement? Opportunity, challenge, confusion, clarity. I will start with Edwin.
So thank you for having me. I will try to do it in one very long sentence. So I think the corporate power purchase agreement is an extremely important tool to ensure that the Bangladeshi RMG sector can remain competitive, because the buyers are comparing the competing countries on how they deal with decent work, of course on the economic performance, but more and more also on the success of decarbonization. And without this CPPA, it will be extremely difficult for the Bangladeshi RMG sector, which is really successful now, to remain as successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Edwin. So competitive is what we got from Edwin. Shayan bhai.
Thank you, Ahsan. Thanks for having me here. So that question is actually it can be discussed throughout the panel discussion, because it's a very short but very broad and relative question. So when we are talking about CPPA, I think a couple of things come to my mind instantly. The first is tariff. When we are talking about PPA, which is like power purchase agreement, there would be a number, that much USD per kilowatt hour. That is the magic number that we would like to get into. So that's very important. That's very easy again for me to say that tariff is one of the most important thing, but really it is very complex at the same time. So that is one I would like to mention. And the other thing that I would like to also mention is the preparedness of the off-takers for off-taking or buying the electricity units. So it is not about building a power plant and plugging the electricity into the grid. It is also to make sure that at that negotiated tariff, there is always a buyer to offtake the power. So that is also an arrangement that will get into the power purchase agreement, but that's also another big piece. So one is mostly from the producer side and the other one is mostly on the off-taker side.
So, challenges.
Right.
Imran bhai.
Thanks, Hasan bhai and the organizer. For me, I think CPPA will be the game changer for our power sector in coming days, which will help the RMG sector as well as our other industry to buy competitive electricity from the developer, as well as also I think one of the major contribution will be, as BPDB will not going to be the single buyer, so I think it will help BPDB to reduce their burden from the subsidy, as well as to increase the portfolio on the financial balance sheet. So overall, I think definitely it's a new era for the local and the foreign investor to invest more in Bangladesh's renewable energy sector. Thanks.
Thank you, Imran bhai. So developers see opportunity. So what does the financier think?
Basically, if we see the opportunity on the side is a new innovation for Bangladesh. It's a new sector. That means a new financing opportunity. As a lender, we always look into how the structure will be done, the power purchase structure, sale and power purchase structure, and the payment structure, legal framework, and the policies, and if what are the non-compliance penalties. All we have to see together as a package how it goes. Depending on that, the level of opportunity depends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhai. So it's further clarity of the, nuanced topics. Faisal bhai.
Hello everyone, and thank you, the organizer, for inviting me here today. And thanks, Hasan, for the question. So it's very difficult to mention CPPA in one sentence, but I'd like to add some few points before that. In my opinion, in the coming future, in the power sector, the corporate PPAs or the merchant power, so the merchant power plants are, as well as the corporate PPAs will lead the power sector in the near future. And the corporate PPAs basically involve a few parties, the buyer, the seller, and the government side who is facilitating this process. So in short, under the CPPA, the industries will be able to buy affordable and clean power directly from the renewable sources, and it will reduce the burden on the government side of that is movement from the single buyer model, and reduce the pressure of subsidy. I think this is the shortest form. Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal bhai. So opportunity. So we see opportunity, innovation, further clarity, and competitiveness through this CPPA framework. Thank you for your responses. And now we would love to go into deeper in the discussion, and we will start with the EU perspective, European Union perspective from Erwin. So Erwin, I think Europe has the long track record with corporate renewable energy sourcing, and with CBAM in the horizon. Do you see CPPAs helping Bangladeshi industries remain competitive in the EU market? And there's a second part to it. What enabling policies EU would suggest is cooperating countries to support Bangladesh in moving CPPAs forward?
Okay, the first part of your question, I answered sort of very briefly in my first reaction. So indeed, in Europe, we have the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which focuses on industry in Europe, the so-called hard to abate sectors, where we risk that if the costs of the decarbonization is too high, that they leave Europe. Because of that, we increase import tariffs on products coming from those sectors directly linked to the cost on the European emission trading system. So it's not a tax, it's ensuring that the cost for the industry in Europe is the same as the costs for companies outside of Europe. I think this is not yet so relevant for Bangladesh, to be frank, because you're not exporting steel and cement and fertilizer and chemicals to Europe, but this might become relevant in the future. What is very relevant for Bangladesh is the pressure that is on our buyers in the RMG sector in particular to also look at their supply. So the buyers are assessing how green the production is here in Bangladesh. And what I understand from the sector is that for them it's extremely difficult to decarbonize fully within the factories. They don't have enough roof to provide all the required renewable energy on location, so they need to produce renewable energy, buy renewable energy for somewhere else in Bangladesh, and for this CPPA is extremely important. So we think it's extremely good that the government has approved the merchant power policy, and we believe that now more detailed guidance is needed. There are many open questions on approval procedure, on the transmission and wheeling arrangements, on the applicable charges, on the financial mechanism to ensure a transparent and efficient operation. And we think that one very important area is the access to land. We think it's important that the government looks into land acquisition. In the neighboring country, in India, you have these large solar parks where the government ensures that there is land and that the infrastructure is there, which makes it extremely interesting for the developers to develop. As European Union, we try to support the government of Bangladesh in this process. Actually, together with the government of Germany, we finance a project, the so-called JET-PEP project, which I think also finances this event today. It's implemented through GIZ, and we want to use this project to look into all the required next steps to make the CPPA successful, and I think today's discussion is already a very important part of this process. I think I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. Very broad and very detailed answer. Now from EU or European Union Commission, we will go to Bangladesh government agency to have a look at what they are thinking. And we have Faisal Bhai, who is the engineer at BPDP. And from utility perspective, we would like to hear his point of view on how CPPAs are going to work. So Faisal Bhai, Bangladesh Power Development Board sits at the heart of power regulation, and how BPDP is viewing CPPAs within the current single buyer model, and what steps might enable a limited open access mechanism from now.
Okay, so basically BPDP works in a single buyer model. That is, they only are allowed to buy the power, but with the introduction of CPPA, it will allow private sector, that is the industries, to buy direct renewable energy or electricity directly from the renewable power plants. So this is a shift from single buyer model to multi-buyer model, and we are taking it positively because of the burden of the subsidy and the high cost of energy generation. With the introduction of the CPPAs, it will reduce the burden on the government side. This is actually a stepping stone to our movement to the wide power market situation. So in future, we hope that we'll be moving towards the power market or the electricity market. So it is basically the introduction of the CPPA will be a stepping stone for the power market. And regarding the next steps, uh, basically, though there is a new policy, merchant power policy, already introduced, but there are several other aspects that need to be addressed. Like we need to develop the relevant agreements, like the merchant power plant, MPPA, that is Merchant Power Purchase Agreement. That is to be signed between the buyer and the seller. And also we need to develop or prepare the template for the service level agreement that is to be signed between the MPP, Merchant Power Plant, BPDB and PGCB, and maybe also the distribution utilities. And apart from that, we also need to finalize the template of the power purchase agreement that will be signed between the MPP and the distribution companies who will buy the 20% of electricity from the MPPs. So we need to finalize these drafts, and also there are some other aspects like the policy mentions that the MPPs will get the facilities declared by the government. So what kind of facilities they will get, and what will be their like the tax waivers or the waiver of the tax and VAT on the imported equipments. These kind of things need to be addressed by the NBR. Also, there are some provisions for the accounting of losses or the metering system, and also for the open access charges. These things need to be addressed by BARC, Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission. So we need to finalize these templates, then we can move forward for the CPPAs.
So I think follow-up question would be like, that we see that there is need of 3 agreements, if you say the MPPA, CPPA, and then an SLA, service level agreement. So, and do you see that there will be responsibilities other than BPDB or power division or the, consumer and the project developer? Do you see the inclusion of BERC, Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission, PGCB? I think you have talked 2 of these names, but do you also see that SREDA gets involved in these agreements? Because we have seen in the policy, SREDA is made responsible for RPO and REC, the renewable energy certificates. So do you also see their involvement or they becoming a part of these MPPAs or CPPAs, the agreements?
So SREDA will not be directly party to these agreements, but they will support, like the power division, as a wing of power division, they can support this adoption of CPPA, like they need to develop the carbon tracking mechanism, or the energy attributes will be bundled with the electricity, but we also need to develop the carbon trading mechanism. So that can be the part of the SREDA.
And has there been any determination that how these carbon credits will be shared among all the 3, I think, agreements? Because each agreement would have their own authority. And how do you think that it might be shared? I know that it's not framed yet, but what would be a wishful thinking? If you
basically, the electricity will be bundled with the energy attributes. So
right.
The sharing mechanism is not that difficult, because it's just the amount of electricity in terms of megawatt hours of renewable power. So it will not be difficult. But regarding the development of mechanism of the carbon trading, that is the part of SREDA.
Thank you, Faisal Bhai, very descriptive for your descriptive responses. From Faisal Bhai, I would like to come to a developer, which is IBVOT, and we have Imran Chaudhary, the representative here. Imran Bhai, as you have also heard Edwin and Faisal Bhai, now I would like to get your take on what a developer thinks about CPPA framework. What is needed to be succeeded in this current state of environment when project developments are in bit of stagnation? And can you share your some experience with CPPAs or such frameworks in Asian markets, and how Bangladesh could be a leader of that, and what kind of investment supports are needed? So it's quite a few questions. If you need some help, I'm here to again repeat it.
Thanks, Hasan Bhai. I can highlight some of IBVOC experience, as I am part of IBVOC's APEC region, where we have presence in most of the emerging markets, renewable energy markets in APEC, like Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, then Singapore also. From last 2 years, basically, in the APEC region, we are focusing on the CPPA-based projects. One of the success or recent success what Ivy Worked has achieved that we signed a PPA with Samsung in Malaysia. If you see the Malaysian government's initiative, the program which called CGPP, Corporate Green Power Purchase Program, which is a really fantastic, which was a kind of game changer for the Malaysian, like also to attract foreign investors. So obviously that was a kind of between bidding and unsolicited. So we signed PPA with Samsung for 15 years PPA. The project capacity is 30 megawatt. If I want to highlight some of other regions, market direction, I think what like Vietnam did, India did, or Malaysian market did that, like they published very clear guideline so that the development phase becomes very easy for the investor. So when I am talking about the development phase or to make the project RTB, ready to build, I think these are the kind of very common term what we used to highlight when we go to the financer and tell that, okay, like my project is in RTB stage, let's bring your finance. So I think considering Bangladesh market for the next 1 year, I will highlight that the wheeling charts, then the payment security mechanism, and also like how to access the grid. So these 3 parts need to be clearly mentioned from the government side. The BARC can take the responsibility because obviously right now we have the policy in the hand, but I think the policy is not good enough. The policy is not sufficient for the developer like to feel that, okay, like I can develop a CPPA and I can arrange non-recourse financing, because I think when I'm talking about the non-recourse financing, it is very important for the renewable energy projects. Second thing, what I feel that the bankable SLA format, what Faisal Bhai mentioned, or the PPA format. So I think from government side, there should be a standard format, and I think government must need to take the input from the investor, domestic and foreign, as well as the DFIs. Because if we see the standard PPA in Bangladesh, which was very bankable, and that's why we saw many foreign investors in the country from last 15 years. So for the CPPA, I think it's very important that when government will try to finalize the SLA, there should be proper input from the other stakeholders. Right. Considering other markets, like in Malaysia, I think why, if you see the Malaysian market is really booming, and all the APEC region, as well as like many European investors are coming to the market. But if you tell me, Imran bhai, like why Ivy Worked is the only one European investor in the market, I think one of the, the key answer will be the regulatory challenges, or it becomes very hard for the European investor to make the project ready to build. I'm not talking about the COD, I'm talking about the RTB stage. So that means your land has to be ready, your construction financing has to be ready, as well as your EPC contract and permitting has to be ready in the place. Regarding the land, I think one of the major loophole what personally I feel which was not mentioned in the policy, that how government will support the developer to secure the land. Because as per the current policy, I think it's almost similar like the typical unsolicited projects, what we have seen previously, where even after issuing the LOI, it took almost 3 to 4 years for the developer to secure the land. So I think government must need to make it very specific that in terms of identifying the land, what type of permitting the developer need to arrange, whether it will be the typical as like government tender or there can be some flexibility. Regarding the transmission line, I think still it's one of the major challenge for the developer, because I think in most of the projects we have seen that the transmission line route approval is very challenging. So I think the PGCB need to play a big role here, that when they will give the transmission line route approval, okay, to connect the national grid so that the other ministries can also support, because if the transmission line pass by the other government ministries, it is also challenging for the investor. So overall, I think to make the CPPA successful, but, or at least to see more projects are in the real development phase, I will suggest that there should be proper direction about the wheeling charge, grid access, and SLA format.
Thank you. Thank you, Faisal bhai. I think, sorry, Imran bhai, I think one last thing I would ask that if there's an opportunity that you can do CPPA, suppose next year, what is one thing that you will have? I think you have stated many things, and I think all of them are coming from your experience of working in this country. But in the framework, what is one thing that is not there, but you would like to see before divulging in that kind of discussion of having a pilot next year? What is one thing that you would like to see in framework that is not in there right now?
I think one question will be, as a developer, even when I was discussing with my APEC team, how they feel. So I think if we see that still there is a way that we can sign PPA with, I mean, the government can buy 20% from the developer. So I think for the pilot project, if it is like maybe European investor, I think they may not feel full secured to sign the whole PPA with the corporate off-taker. They will like to see that, okay, at least we can sign 20% PPA with the distribution utility. But again, I think in that part, the major question will come whether there will be a government guarantee or not, which is missing. So I think if you ask me, like how Avivoct will like to develop the project, if it is a 50 megawatt project, definitely we like to sell at 20% electricity to the distribution utility.
So guarantee is the dream. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Imran bhai. Now, I think we have heard enough risks, enough policy and also technical aspects, but hearing all this, we would now come to the financial perspective. What does the financier think? Is CPPA a credit-worthy mechanism for them right now at the stage that the framework is? And we have Mesbahul Asif Siddiq bhai, who's the DMD with Citibank. Asif bhai, I think Citibank has done tremendous job in doing sustainable financing and green financing in the last few years. We have seen that there have been many renewable energy projects that have been financed by Citibank as well. So my question would be, what is your perspective that how CPPA projects will be credit-worthy? Is it credit-worthy for you now at the stage that it is, that with no pilot, with no reference, only a framework? And what will be some things that you would like to see to actually finance those projects?
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good question. I come from a little bit background of it. You know, the government has actually had the target of making renewable energy source 30% by 2030, which has been revised, reduced to 20%. And the target was 2040, by 2040, 40% will be from renewable. Now, it also reduced to 30. And what is the actual situation is just above 5% is coming from renewable source. It shows that we have tremendous opportunity and the government has intention to do that. On the other hand, another negative thing say that we have inefficiencies because we could only achieve 5% where we should have been 20 or 30% by 2030. There are challenges which actually comes to the mind of financiers as well. There are, I think already Imran bhai said that land scarcity is one of the challenge because we have a small country, densely populated. And regarding the financial constraint, how the grid integration will happen, the technology altogether, the investment required. As per IEEFA, it's a study of 2023, they said by 2030, the financing requirements is $980 million. If we want to meet the target of 2040, it will require further $1.5 billion. Now, as a lender, it's what we do actually as a lender. If you go by basic, for the interest of time, it has to be a business case. Okay, we have to have a control over the cash flow from the borrower's business, and the risk appetite of the banks. And one of the challenging factors is this kind of projects may require payback period 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending on the size and the investment. Where the commercial banks, basically, for the risk management perspective, go up to 5 to 6 years of financing. Here, at one of the financial sector, what should I say, the structural problem, what has happened in Bangladesh, the NBFI, non-banking financial institution, like ITCOL and BIFL or the other companies, actually it was expected the NBFI sector will actually lend for the infrastructure and they will lend for the longer tenure. But we have seen their scale or the size of financing they're doing. ITCOL and BIFL is the leading, but the size in terms of the demand is very small. They are not meeting the actually the main need. So the commercial banks have stepped in, but the challenges is the tenor. If we see the private sector, power purchase companies, and out of which Citibank alone has financed 20% of the entire private sector power generating company. The other financial institutions have done it. They have competitive advantage in terms of pricing and the tenor. Again, if we cannot meet the scale, we cannot meet the target because target is huge. On the other side, commercial bank also see what will be the security, collateral, and the legal framework is also important. And another thing came up new in the side is the confidence provided by the regulator and the government. I think one of the regulators is sitting just beside me. We finance 24 power generating company, starting from I think 2012-13 till now. But we have suffered for the last 2-3 years. The BPTB has not paid their bills to this private power generating company. And it used to be delayed by 3 months against a payment target of payment terms of 45 days. We are okay with the 3 months delay. And then this delay reached up to 8 to 9 months, and which caused almost default of most of the power generating company to their lending banks. And the solution came up issuing of a special bond issued by the government, and we had to purchase that. We had to purchase 6,000 crore of special bond, where we have taken 8 to 9 years maximum tenor on an average, somewhere 12, somewhere 6, somewhere 7. So remaining tenor was 3 to 4 years. And then at that moment, as a commercial bank, we have to take a further 10-year exposure over a 6,000 crore. Is the problem solved? Not yet. Still the bills are delayed on an average that from 8 to 9 months came down to 5 to 6 months. So this is a concern for the commercial banks. Should we increase our exposure to the power sector? Okay. We know today's discussion is the private sector. Again, it depends on the structure, how the payment structure will be given. One is the buyer, one is the seller. In the interim, is the intermediary is the bank. And if the buyer stop purchasing, how that will be protected, how the financing bank will be protected, these are not clear in the policy. So I think we need to check our neighboring countries, particularly India. They have a very defined, structured policy already. We can also see the Vietnam part. They're also very defined. Just the countries in Asian region, we can compare with our policy. We need more clarity in the policy. I think that is lacking here. This is a renewable energy policy, but I think regarding the corporate power purchase agreement or merchant power purchase agreement, whatever you say, the clarity is not there. At this moment, we cannot say yes or no, depending on the policy that we have. Prospect is huge, opportunities are huge. Definitely at this moment, risk is also huge. So we have to mitigate the risk, and then the financing company will come forward. Again, the sourcing of the fund will be an important factor for the commercial bank. I know, again, I may come back to ITCOL. ITCOL is being an NBFI, has some limitations as well. So they are getting the most of this low-cost concessional fund, being a state-owned company. But I think mindset has to be changed. The climate fund and this low-cost fund should come to the private sector commercial bank which has a bigger scope and the client base where these commercial bank can take into the scale. And you know that Citibank is the top and #1 sustainable bank for consecutive 5 years, rated by the central bank of the country. So till now, and the other top 10 bank, I think the major financing and the green and the sustainable finance side. So you have to give opportunity to the private sector financial institution, which can help to take it to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhai. I think very valid points. And yes, there is a lot of clarity needed for moving CPPA forward. But one question I think we saw in the recent news that congratulations on that you have secured a $75 million loan facility for renewable energy efficiency, mobility. And I think with clarity, I think within next year or so, do you think that there will be opportunity to involve some of those funding in CPPA projects, and or there would be other mechanisms that you would be like to see, like green bonds, guarantee support schemes, or risk sharing tools? That I think we have syndication financing already. You have participated, or many other banks have participated along with ITCOL for sharing the risk. And I mean, Guaranco has provided guarantees, and other guarantee providers have provided guarantees. So what I think innovations in financial sector would be needed for CPPAs as well, considering the current market challenges? If the clarity is there, then again, what I think new innovative tools you would like to see? If you could name one or two that this might be the best solution for now. We know that there are concessionary credits. We know there are guarantee support schemes. IFC is building one. What other things that you would might like to see that is not available in the market, but would be beneficial for CPPAs?
Thank you. That's a good question. In one word, there is no panacea for it. At this moment, we can say one solution fits everything. First question was regarding the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank loan to Citibank, $75 million. The areas covered is renewable energy, energy efficiency, e-mobility, and digital infrastructure. So that means it falls under. Again, the repayment tenor for us is 5 years. So again, the question comes, I see the tenor, because the commercial bank, we mobilize deposit for less than 1 year mostly, and it's difficult to go for that's 10, 15, or 20 years. So even one of the DFIs, like AIIB, actually they don't want to lend more than 5 years to a commercial bank, you see. So that's why the commercial banks need support from the government and the government agency and the multilateral like ADB or IFC or World Bank. The government can give sovereign guarantee in favor of the private bank. It has a practice that only government gives sovereign guarantee to government institutions only. Whereas if you bring in the private sector, I think the game will change. And you know, in the commerce and industry, manufacturing side, the game changer is the private sector. Okay. So you said the innovation. I think no invention and innovation is required. Only thing in whatever is already invented, we have to bring it into our market. That is a green bond market. We don't have a bond market. We don't have a secondary bond market. So for bond is usually 10, 20 years. Otherwise, you can go for commercial banking. For bond market, you have to go for longer term. So for the investor, there has to be an exit opportunity. If you cannot exit for in time of your liquidity need, then no one will be interested to invest lock their fund for 10, 20 years. It's a very normal, it makes common sense. So bond market has to be development. Many of us, and many discussions is going on green bond market. I think this is, I think the topping on the cake, where the cake is not there. The bond market is not there. Everyone talking about the green bond, sustainable bond, orange bond. I hear a bit. I am working in this side for last 6-7 years. Although I'm banking, I'm working for 26 years. But everyone is talking about green bond and the sustainable bond. But I see bond market is not there. So that it is a responsibility of the government, a responsibility of Securitation Commission, responsibility little bit goes on the central bank, but I think mostly goes on the other regulators. So on the other hand, if you see, we talk about sustainable development goal. It is applicable for the government, private sector, NGOs, everyone. Good, fine. Central bank has done tremendous job bringing into commercial bank into green finance and sustainable finance. They should get a big credit for that. Now but you come here, there is not a single tax benefit for green bond investor, green bond issuer, or the stakeholders. There is no incentive, tax benefit tariff. And this issue has been in talk with National Committee for Green Bond. I think it was done in 2019 or at that time, but still we have haven't seen any single development. So as if National Board of Revenue is not under the purview of SDG. They are not part of the government. Because they have to understand if government is having the SDG goal and green bond and the sustainable bond is part of that, then NBR has to be part of it. And interestingly, I see in many discussions, NBR is absent in everywhere. I have attended so many discussions, so many symposiums, seminars. I haven't seen NBR people there. Always central bank, Securitation Commission, Power Development Board, other government agency, but NBR is not there. I think absence of NBR is another, I think is a big limitation. So I think bond market, I think at this moment is an easy solution, but difficult for Bangladesh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bhai. Very interesting point on bond market and also including NBR in our further events. I think we'll take a note of that and try to include them as well in these discussions. And now I think last but not the least, and I think we have kept Shayan Bhai waiting, keeping the seat hot, and we want to hear H&M's perspective. Shayan Bhai, from you. H&M has been one of the strongest voices, I think, from CPPAs on CPPAs from last 2 years when the discussions were happening. H&M was very active in the development process, supporting different agencies as well, doing capacity development and promotion of it. So from H&M side, what's driving H&M in doing this? What's the driver, and how do you think this is going to, the CPPA framework is going to influence supplier competitiveness, as Edwin suggested? What is driving you, and what will ensure the supplier competitiveness? Shayan Bhai.
Great. I feel like concluding the session because we have heard so many rich discussions, and I think all these are very important. And you said what I believe from H&M, then you will get limited information. But if you ask me as an individual, I can get the holistic picture as well. Please. So I will give a couple of numbers. I think that's important for this sector to understand. 84%. This is a number that, this is the percentage of export that Bangladesh has, which is RMG. So we cannot but look into what the RMG sector is doing. 84%. It's just astronomically significant. That's one. Then you come to that idea of how much of this export is going to European Union countries, more than 50%. Again, so that basically tells us that the EU legislations, applicable laws, regulations that European Union has, in order for Bangladesh to maintain the export and maintain the GDP in turn, we have to abide by these rules and regulations of the European Union, as Edwin also mentioned, those clauses. And it is getting more strict day by day for right reasons. So that is why, as a European brand, a Swedish brand, H&M, we we were interested to test this industry out. Because another number I can share here is also like in Bangladesh, H&M is the single largest buyer, international exporter when it comes to ready-made garments. So whatever we are discussing on export, economy, RMG comes to play, and as the largest buyer, H&M definitely comes to play. So the target that internally H&M as a group has is reducing our carbon footprint by 56% from 2019 by 2030. So if our carbon footprint was X amount in 2019, in just 11 years' time, we are saying that our carbon footprint will be reduced by 56%. So that's a very ambitious target. And at the same time, we want to green our entire supply chain 100% by 2030. So both of these two are going to then support the overall target of the government of Bangladesh also, as I think Ms. Bhavai was mentioning, that 20% of renewable energy generation by 2030. So there is really, if one wants to do a simple mathematics, there is no question in terms of what needs to be done. Everyone is agreed. We need renewable energy, we need to green the supply chain, we need industrial decarbonization. All these are like things that everyone in this panel, and thanks to GIZ, by the way, for getting a very diverse panel with different kinds of views. I think that's really what's needed right now. So this is everyone's duty, end of the day. So now coming to why we are driven by this. So we wanted to green our supply chain, and our target of getting 100%, getting our sources of electricity by 100% from renewable energy. Now, with the idea of where we are on CPPA in Bangladesh, I think I would just emphasize on just 4 points. One, tariff. As I mentioned, I'm reiterating, tariff will be a big determining factor. But at the same time, there is nothing to look at this in a negative way. It's actually a liberty that these two merchants, like the private companies, they have that power to negotiate. If we look into the background of why a merchant power policy was needed, we wanted the private sector wanted the government to step away and say that we want to trade power. And there are so many layers when we are trading power only to BPDBU, we want to trade power ourselves. The government, and if you look at the international standards, the government did a fantastic job to get a policy enacted within a very short period of time. Right. In my previous organization, we actually started initiating the dialogue when it comes to CPPA. And it's just within 3 years, we have a policy that is enacted by the government. So that's a great thing to have at the first place. But now with the policy now enacted and it's available, we need more clarity. And for that clarity, again, we don't have to get so much worried, because it's not a new thing that is generated. If you look at India, I have looked into CPPA agreements from India. It's 5-page. It's very clear. There is a tariff that has been negotiated by these two groups, two companies. The financier is not mentioned even in the PPA, because it is up to the project developer to secure financing. But as Ms. Bhai was also saying, the financiers will only come to play when they see business interest. It's as simple as that. It's not, yes, it's a great thing to do, that's why we should be there. Unfortunately, the green, climate, whatever you say, all kinds of funds that are labeled with this idea of being a good person in the team. It's not really that. It's also, it's that, but at the same time, more importantly, it has to also make business sense. Also for buyers like H&M, we are excited. We drove the agenda forward, But we will also get out of this if we see that, okay, the tariff that has been now negotiated is really not less than the renewable energy certificate that's available at that time. So for businesses, we also need that to make sense. It has to, CPP is great, but if we come down to a tariff which is not competitive with IREC, for example, at the given period of time, so that is not going to work for us. So that's tariff. Then our second point I want to mention is the tenor. That again, Ms. Bhai mentioned, that is also something that when people will walk the talk, this will come up. What about my exit clause? I don't, as corporates, I cannot predict or I cannot commit myself 10 years from now in a given tariff structure that I know today. So the tenure, what would be the tenure of the PPA and how the undertaking will be done, how the off-taking will be done by the buyers. So it could be, the PPA could be for 25 years, but as a corporate, I cannot commit to say that I will purchase electricity for 25 years at this X price. That's impossible. But again, we don't have to worry because there are examples. If you look at the PPA, what's written there, they have set a tariff, but they are saying that in the process, if there is a change in the tariff, upward or downward, the balance would be done in 50-50% or 70-30%. So again, that's a negotiation. We don't have to worry. We just have to understand what is globally accepted standard. Second was that. The third is the exit clause. The investors need to have an exit clause written in the power purchase agreement saying that, okay, if I don't feel that this is not the way to go, or if it is not making business sense to us, this is how we can terminate ourselves from the clause. We can exit, we can walk out from the PPA, and this is going to be the fee and the whatever rules that's agreed upon. But there has to be an exit clause to say, because it's again business forecasting. We cannot do that like a government can do. We cannot hold ourselves accountable for 25 long years and say that we are going to do this in this fashion. And finally, the off-taking. There has to be enough demand in the market. Otherwise, my friend Imran here will not generate a 50 megawatt power plant for a corporate who basically says today that I have enough demand, but 5 years down the line, they're saying, no, I don't have that demand anymore. He or she can definitely purchase, sell the electricity to the government, but that the merchant power policy also limits that to 20%. So now we are talking about 80% of electricity, and we want to guarantee that this 80% of electricity that is being generated from the power plant is off-taken by a corporate. So these are the 4 important things that I think will need to be discussed in a larger setting. And this is an example of a larger setting. It's the development agencies, it's the buyer, it's the government agencies, it's the financier, it's the project developer. So again, thanks to GIZ for at least setting up that tone that it is not a renewable energy company only thing. It's more than that. It's finance. It's about agreements. It's about legal clauses. It's about saving and providing responsibilities and roles to each of the parties. So, I mean, I think I'll stop here, and I hope that with this, if I want the audience to leave with one message, is that it's much bigger than a renewable energy project.
Thank you. Thank you, Shan Bhai. You said a lot of things and a lot of things to think about among ourselves. But I think one thing that I need to understand from my perspective, so if there's a net zero target by 2030, so wouldn't it be more feasible to give a commitment for 25 years for a project? Because you are having a net zero target at 2030, and after 2030 there will be still emissions, right? So won't it be feasible, I mean, tagging, because your emissions will only increase, if you say so, in the supply chain. So wouldn't it be feasible for a brand, I mean, not prospectively saying H&M, but as you are here, so H&M, to have that 25 years commitment locked in? Because we see the trend that emissions are only increasing, not decreasing. So what is your perspective there? I mean, why a commitment of 25 years is not feasible from a business standpoint, considering that there will be emissions after 2030, after
Right.
your net zero target?
No, that's a very good question, and it has a very simple answer also. Like you have used the word commitment. So when you are using commitment, it's like us or the corporate saying that this is what I'm going to do for 25 years. So that is a strong thing for any private company to say that this is where we want ourselves locked in. So if it is about commitment, we would want to make sure that the parties understand that there is a tenure and there is a tariff. And there is this exit clause. So in an ideal world, we would like to do this for 25 years or even more. But what if? What if? We cannot predict what will happen as a corporate. Like, let's say, what if we come to find out that 20 years down the line, there are more market-based mechanisms that are in place, and we can take advantage of that. So in those cases, we would like to explore that because that would make more business sense to us. So yes, the intention is for long term, but not the commitment.
Right. Thank you, Shayan Bhai. A round of applause for all of our panelists. They have been excellent. But we are at the end, not the end. So there will be a rapid fire closing, and I will ask all of you in a backwards. What is the single most important step if Bangladesh should take for CPPA to be established or CPPA to become a reality in 2026? One sentence. I'll start from backwards. So Faisal Bhai, what one thing one step Bangladesh government should do?
So from the government side, our current priority is to develop the 3 agreements, the templates. That is our side.
Right. Okay. Meswa Bhai, from financing end.
From the financing side, one of the most important thing is the revenue of the company, and that depends on the tariff. And there will be a standard reference where the government or the private government PPP. So they are having already few renewable energy under implementation. Some has implemented, but we've seen the project the tariff has been changed. So that also can be a concern. So tariff consistency in the tariff will be one important.
Consistency. Okay. Imran Bhai.
Very short, adopt regional best practices, bring investors confidence, and also keep the input of private sector as well as financiers input in the policy or the SLA what we are going to be finalists. Thanks.
Thank you. Shayan Bhai?
Right. I think I would emphasize on the need for building capacity and knowledge in the market. And when I say market, it is really these 6 types of agencies. Everyone needs to talk about this, and then they will come to understand it's not as risky as it is perceived today. It's not as risky. It's a proven technology in many countries, proven market-based mechanism. So, but for that to happen, I think knowledge and capacity building needs to be there. Thanks.
Erwin.
Yes, thank you. So indeed, it has been said several times, now more clarity is needed, so to go in more detail, what are the open questions also in relation to the 4 issues you mentioned. I think we should look, or Bangladesh should look at examples in the neighborhood, as also has been mentioned. And from a broader perspective, as EU, we believe it's very important to set clear targets and put those targets into law. So in the EU we have the European climate law, where we have a target for 2030, which is put in law, and which we also have all the legislation in place to implement it. We now have agreed on a target for 2040. At least the member states agreed. It still needs to go through the European Parliament. And we have a target for 2050. So in Bangladesh, you still don't have a long-term target. You didn't define when you want to become climate neutral. And I think setting these targets will also create more trust for the private sector and for foreign investors to really invest in the renewable energies sector, including to CPPAs.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you all of the panelists. But, oh, stop, we have not forgot about the audience. Yeah, we will ask now our audience to share some of their insights, also some questions. We have time for, I think, 2 to 3 questions. So I will ask any one of you who's like to ask a question to raise your hand, state your name, your organization, and keep your question very brief. Please don't make it a comment. We had a lot of comments today. So as brief question. So anyone from the audience, the mic is yours. The mic person is over there. Raise your hand and he will be there and ask your question. Thank you. Anyone? I think we have gentlemen from DVL Group.
Hello, I'm Mashuk from DVL Group. Just as, it's very interesting to hear that all the relevant people are here. So can we just starting a model very quickly now? I mean, it can be an evolutionary model. And we just start off with something which will, for example, the policy side, it will be improving from the investor side, from the brand side and everything. So it can be constantly evolving. But it's more like that, can it be just started so that everyone can get aboard with the 56% or the overall EU targets for the climate?
So,
thank you.
Who are you asking this question to?
It's more like a generalized
question.
Yes.
Okay. So any takers?
Yeah, I can take a stab. So I think we don't have to say this is the start. I mean, the thing has started already. So there was a first CPPA pilot back in April where H&M, PRAND, and IFC, we 3 parties came together and locked an MOU. But again, that MOU has to translate into tangible agreements. And that's what we are working on right now. And by that time, we have also seen the policy being approved by the government, which was taken that was a welcome message for us. We wanted that to happen, but we also were anticipating more delays. So it was a good surprise for us also that finally this was done. So I would probably reiterate my last comment. I mean, we can take this as an example of what needs to be done now, but there could be several of these kind of discussions, but it really has to be something that we need to make sure that the people who understands the subject matter is in the discussion room. Then it would be easier. So not necessarily everything should be done in a symposium fashion. At a point, there will have to be a need for getting a few people and then they would like to provide their comments and feedback. And I think the government is also trying to do that also. As Faisal Bhai also mentioned, it's really great if that is the government's immediate priority, to have frameworks that we can refer to. I mean, and I'm sure that the government is also very much into this. So I don't want to say this is the start, but this is definitely something that we can continue. Yes.
Just want to highlight one thing. So CPPA is basically, it will always be a greenfield project, okay? So like as an investor, when we talk about the project development, 2 common terms, I think globally we use, one is the greenfield, one is the brownfield, okay? So greenfield project, it will always take time to make your project bankable from the scratch to the RTB, okay? So like even for the other unsolicited projects or the fossil fuel projects, it always take a time. So I think we also need to keep the patience, okay, because the development phase will always take time and it is a kind of combined effort. Again, I'm saying it is not a single effort, okay. The development phase of any power plant or the renewable energy power plant, it will come from developer, off-taker, even other co-investor and obviously the grid operator, okay. So when we will see that, okay, like the multiple parties are putting the efforts, then we will see the successful development phase. Thanks.
Thank you. So any other questions from audience? So I don't see any hands, so thank you all, panelists, audience, for such rich insights. So let's continue in having this discussion. And on behalf of GIZ, I would like to thank our partners from U delegation, from BBDB Faisal Bhai, from H&M Shan Bhai, from IBPOD Imran Bhai, and from Citibank Mr. Bhai. Of course, let's continue this discussion, and so that by next year we are not sitting around and having discussion on what CPPA can be, but what the pilot project's operational challenges are. So that's the dream. So thank you, and enjoy the closing session. Thank you.